All right, so we'll go ahead and get this section all started by talking about what it is that we're trying to build. So we're trying to build a little Instagram clone, and if you don't know what Instagram is, it's an app where you can take some pictures, post those so that other friends can see them. We're going to build a simple version of Instagram. If we were trying to build the actual real deal, we need a team of hundreds of developers and millions of dollars to do that. But it is pretty amazing with, using technology like Parse and Android Studio, we can get fairly far with just working by ourselves. So anyways, this is the end goal of what we're moving towards. Now, I kind of mentioned Parse before. Parse is a place for us to make the whole backend for our app. We're going to store our photos there. We're also going to have, some communications about like creating users accounts and whatnot. So to get access to Parse and learn more about it, go to parse.com. This is going to forward you to parseplatform.org. So Parse was a company that helped you build backends for apps, whether you're making an Android app, an iPhone app. I think they even worked with like Windows Phone. And then Facebook acquired them. And then Facebook decided at some point that they were going to shut this part of the business down. And so they kind of gave everyone some time to get their apps off of Parse, but then they decided to open source Parse. And so it's been pretty interesting. Now all the Parse code has been open sourced and people have been updating it on their own, which is pretty great to see. And the awesome thing about Parse being open source now is that if you want to run this Parse on your own server, it is completely yours, right? Like there's no chance of Facebook shutting this down, or Google, they have Firebase of them shutting that down. Like if you use Parse server that is now open sourced on your own server, you are in complete control of it. So it's obviously, it hasn't seen as many updates, as it did before when, there's a dedicated team working on it with money behind it. But still pretty impressive that you can get all this functionality in this very awesome open source project. So anyways, this is what we're going to be working with, and there's all sorts of great tools there. The next thing is, where are we going to host this content, right? Because I said we need to save it onto a server. So we are going to be doing that on the world's most popular hosting service, and that's Amazon's Web Services. So you might have heard it before. It's commonly referred to as AWS. So just go to aws.amazon.com. Okay. This is where we're going to go ahead and get all signed up and everything. And so again, this is where we're going to host the Parse server code, is on a server here from AWS. And what's awesome about AWS is they have a free tier where we can run our app and not have to pay it for anything, because it's going to be such a small footprint. So anyways, go ahead and get moving forward by creating an AWS account. Go ahead and plug in your information, and then I'll rejoin you once you're finished with that. So while you're signing up, if you're concerned when they prompt you to put in some credit card information and they say, hey, we're not going to charge you unless you break the free tier. If you want to know more about the free tier, go to aws.amazon.com/free, and they'll go ahead and show you everything here. So Amazon EC2 is what we're going to be working with. And as you can see, you get 12 months of free here. So pretty awesome stuff. But anyways, yes, just wanted to kind of, if you're having concerns like, I'm not sure if I want to put in this information, here's more information about the free tier, which we will definitely be working inside of. All right, once you are signed in, you want to go up to the top here to services, and we want to click on EC2. This stands for Elastic Compute 2. And basically the idea here is that it's going to be the server that can run the Parse code that can grow and shrink as needed. So with this, let's go ahead and click on Launch Instance. This is going to start a new EC2 server. With that, there's all sorts of different starting points for your server that you can come from, but we want to go to the AWS Marketplace here, and we are simply just going to do a search for Parse. So go ahead and search for Parse, and we want to get this Parse server powered by Bitnami. So go ahead and select this. And once you're here, go ahead, take a look at, the different hourly fees that are there. Like I said before, we're going to be working within the free tier eligible. So we'll go ahead and hit continue there. Now, you want to make sure that you have this T2 micro, the one that says free tier eligible, and we'll go ahead and move forward with that. by saying review and launch. Okay, so just go ahead and hit that. Now, once you have this in place, you just want to kind of confirm here that this is what we're looking for. Parse server powered by Bitnami. And the awesome thing about this is it basically launches a server with this Parse server code all ready to rock and roll, which is pretty great. So we'll go ahead and hit launch. Now, once we do this, we're going to have to create this key pair. And so once you see this in place, what we're going to do is first come here and say we want to create a new key pair, and we got to give it a name. So let's just go ahead and call this Instagram Android. Or something like that. There's nothing magical about that name. You just have to pick something. And once you have that, go ahead and hit download key pair so that you have this on your computer. You can see we've got that as a text file. And there, once we have it, let's go ahead and say launch instance. Okay. So this will go through and get everything set up. This will take a little bit of time here. So I'm going to go ahead and restart the video once this is finished. Now, once you have that finished, go ahead and click on this link so you can look at your instance. If you ever get lost, you can always go back to services and then go to EC2 and click on the, should be only one instance that you have running now. And once you're at this place, then we want to go ahead and hit this connect button because this is going to allow us to log into this server, which is basically just a computer that Amazon's hosting for us that has all this Parse code on it. So we'll go ahead and hit the connect button. Now, there's two options here. There's a standalone SSH client and a Java SSH client. And you're saying, well, what's an SSH client? Well, a SSH client allows us to communicate with the computer, and it does it via text. So if you've ever used the terminal on a Mac, I'll go ahead and open it up here. This is also like the command prompt in Windows where you just via text are interfacing with the computer. That's how you work with your server here on AWS. So unfortunately, the Java client really doesn't work as well as it claims to be. So we want to go ahead and use the standard standalone SSH client. So you're going to have to find one on your computer. So on the Mac, it's the terminal. So if you go ahead and do a command spacebar to open up Spotlight, just go ahead and search for terminal. And if you're on Windows, I would recommend using something called PuTTY. And luckily they have a link to it here, which is pretty great. So with this in place, let's go ahead and move forward. The one thing that we do want to check is that the file that we had downloaded was downloaded as a .txt. It might have been. I was a little bit concerned about that. So let's go ahead and switch this to date added .pem.text. So I'm going to remove just the .text on the end of our downloaded file. And in fact, we're going to keep that as .pem, and I'm going to go ahead and move that to my desktop so I can easily access that. Okay. So once we have that in place, we're just going to go ahead and follow the instructions that we have here. So again, remember, you're going to have to, tweak this according to your situation. But on the Mac here, let's go ahead and open up the terminal. So the first thing that we've got to do is get to where our keys are. So ours are on the desktop. So I'm going to say CD, which is short for change directory space, capital desktop. And if we do that, we should see that it's moved us into the desktop, and we want to do an LS and hit enter. That shows you all the files that are in the current directory that you're showing. And there's that Instagram Android.pem. So we know, okay, we're in a good place. So once we've done that, we want to run this code to make sure that we're going to be able to access this. So we're going to do the chmod 400 for the Instagram pen. Now that we're in the correct place, we'll just go ahead and hit enter on that. Then we want to use copy this right here, and well, might as well copy this whole thing because this is going to allow us to log into our instance here. So we're going to go ahead and copy this line of code, go ahead and paste it in there. It's going to say, are you sure that you want to connect to this? And we're going to say yes. And if you see this screen, this means that you have successfully been able to connect and you are ready to rock and roll. So once you get to the screen, we need to move into where the parse code is to kind of do some setup. So inside of now, which is our server on AWS, we're going to say cd space apps slash, this is all lowercase, parse slash ht docs, just like that. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. Next, we have a file that we need to edit. So we're going to use a VI here, which is going to allow us to edit this code. So we're going to say VI server.js, all lowercase there. So go ahead and hit enter on this, and this is going to bring up a screen here where we can go and get all these different pieces here. So there's, like an app ID, a master key. We're going to need all of this in order to connect. So once we have this in place, we're at a good position here. There's something else that we got to go grab. So open up a new tab in your browser, and we need to go and get something from Rob's website. So we're going to go to androiddevcourse.com, and then once we've done that, we're going to do lowercase parse project.zip, and just go ahead and hit enter on that. That should prompt a download that's going to come to your computer. So this is just an Android Studio project that's sort of a starting point for you to move forward with. It's got the parse code all ready to rock and roll, and so it just kind of saves us one extra step in working with this. So we're going to go ahead, and once this is finished downloading, and we'll have Finder here ready to take our new folder. So I'm going to move this to our desktop for the time being. And once you're inside of here, you can see this is just like any other project that we've opened before. So if we go ahead and get Android Studio opened up, we can use it to open up this project and move forward from there. So let's give Android Studio a second to load here. Oh, and this is bringing up our last project that I was working on, so we'll close that out. Now we want to do open an existing Android Studio project. We'll point to the desktop, and we'll say open that. And Android Studio SDK, okay, so it's saying it's going to be putting that in a new location. Okay, that sounds good to me. So we'll wait for this to pop up. So when the project opens up, you might not have the same build tools that the project has. So if not, you want to go ahead and just click install build tools, and Android Studio will go through and get you all the right pieces of information that you need in order to get that up and running. So whatever prompts you need in order to get this moving, you just want to go ahead and move forward with those. But and look, it already finished up there, so that's pretty great. And while this is opening up, so let's talk about the code that is inside of here. And I'm going to open this up so you can kind of see what we've got inside of here. So there's a typical main activity that you'd like have in any other place, and it looks pretty standard, except we've got this parse analytics. And yes, let's go ahead and do an update here. But this parse analytics, and this is going to essentially allow us to do some checks on our code to see how much a user is using the app and stuff like that. But the real interesting stuff here is in this starter application, because this has some code that allows us to connect to Parse, and down here we're going to create some objects that we're going to put in that Parse server, and try and get them and read them back. And so with all of this, we've got to then plug in some stuff like the application ID, client key, server, all that good stuff. So luckily we have all this information inside of our terminal, so we just need to go ahead and move forward with entering that information. So the first one is the application ID. You can see we've got an app ID here, so don't get the double quotes, but go grab that huge string of letters and numbers, and we're going to go ahead and paste that into our app. Android Studio here is taking a second, so let's see. We're going to try and get through some of our issues there, but we'll go ahead and paste that one in. The next one that we need is the client key. So this is going to be what's the file key. Make sure you don't do, or the master key, don't do the file key. So we're going to copy the master key, and we'll go ahead and paste it there. All right, and then the last one that we need is the server. So, oh, and we've got more errors here. So let's add support, and let's see, open up terminal here. We want to get the server URL, so grab all of that, including the HTTP all the way to Parse, and we'll go ahead and paste that in. And the one kind of additional bonus thing that we need to add is a slash here on the end of the code. Okay, so with this in place, we now successfully have everything that we need in order to connect to this Parse instance. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run this and see if we can get this code to run. And if it works successfully, it's going to log some information onto, or it's going to save some information onto the Parse server. And we'll actually be able to, via a web browser, check that everything worked and, move forward from there. So let's go ahead and hit the start button here. We're going to have to pick a device to work with. So go ahead and use this. And I'll come back and start the video when the emulator's ready to rock and roll. Well, I guess actually while it's going, we can talk about how we can get to the correct URL in order to check out the code. So what we're going to do is go back to our code, or even the terminal here. We just need to be able to get to this Parse location. So we're going to go ahead, copy whatever the URL is, and we're going to paste this in. And after this, instead of doing the /parse, we are going to do / and we're going to just type in apps, just like that. So if we go ahead and hit enter on that, you can see this then brings us to a login page here for the Parse server. Now to log in, the username is just user, that's set by default. Now the password is something that Bitnami has created for us, and they've actually spit it out in the logs, but it takes a little bit of work to go find that. So we're going to go to our EC2 management console page again. We'll X out of this. And on our instance page, we're going to go to actions, instance settings, get system log. And if we click on this, this has got a ton of information about when it was all set up and stuff, and what's been happening on that server. But if we keep scrolling, we want to look for a box like this that says setting Bitnami application password to the following. So we want to go ahead and just copy this code, and it might be worth it to, somewhere in your Android Studio project, maybe leave this as a comment so that you make sure you remember this. You can go, oh, looks like I didn't copy this. So right click, copy. You'll want to go and change this password to maybe something more secure and to something that you would actually remember. But with that, we can go back to the Parse dashboard, go ahead and paste that in and log in. Okay, so there you can see my Bitnami Parse API. That's all there. That's ready to rock and roll. Let's see if our emulator opened up, and yes, it did. So that's a good starting point. We'll go back to Android Studio. Let's go ahead and check logcat, because we had said if things are successful here, we should say successful. And look at that, parse result successful. So we know that it worked here, at least in the code. But to really confirm that everything worked here, we're going to go back to the project here, click on this, and we should see, if we go check out this thing called example object, something that says rob123. And the awesome thing about this is if we go back to our code, this is the thing that we put in over there. We said we're going to make something called rob with 123, and we're going to save this to the server, and look, it is there. So you may be saying, okay, we got it up and running, whatever. I can't tell you how big of a deal this is that we have it up and running. I've tried to make my own back-end servers for my apps before, and I've written them from scratch rather than using something like Parse, and holy cow, what a drain that was trying to get things up and running. And the fact that we are here, we're able to work with Parse, it's a great starting point to just keep rocking with the rest of the app. So we still got more to do, but the fact that we're here is a great starting point. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.